all set.
Usually I lean back, you know,
It's-
make it
They already have.
If you do have questions,
They're
you
Friday.
write them down.
Would you like to meet?
So that we can answer questions for you.
Let's meet.
Okay, we're ready.
We're good, okay. Okay, welcome to our back
Comments
to our work
from
meeting
anybody that's not on the
for the
calendar.
12th,
Just write your questions.
March 12th. We're just finished item 2 in a closed session, so we're now on to item 3.1, city status report, and we'll go to Trevor.
Thank you, Mayor. We have this month's status report. I think the update that we did, Councilmember Hodges had asked for a distribution, kind of showing the different types of housing that we have in the city. So that's been provided there in the form of a colored donut. Single family about
Sprinkled?
almost, well, there's a sprinkle of condos in there, I guess, 30% of that. 64, roughly between detached single-family homes and, multi-family homes of various. That's awesome. Types. So, happy to take any questions or further feedback.
I still can't believe that vacancy rate is that high.
It's,
So that is in the market that we're in, that just seems.
So, yeah, it's a good observation. The vacancy rate is derived from, in our method, just looking at zero reads on water meters, that we know there's a connection for
Good data.
three months
that is-
running.
That's a good,
So we do 3 months, so if it hasn't run in 3 months,
you call it vacant.
we call it vacant.
So, given all of that, though, there is work currently underway to true that up, because if we're getting 3% vacancy, that's not necessarily indicative of no one lives there. That means potentially we're not getting revenue back.
Yeah,
People
we're
are
not
using
good,
the
something's
water.
wrong with the water.
Yeah,
meter.
yeah, so I'm working with,
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
working with GIS and with the water department to kinda suss that out a bit.
Okay.
Not sure if that'll come back and change it to any degree, but we are looking into
The
it.
next door neighbor's got a hose running across.
It's a short-term rental.
That's good data to pull from, cause then it's recent, but then if there is an issue, it's quick to find.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That's
we've
it.
been,
That's cool.
What did we do before Trevor? I don't even remember why before Trevor.
We didn't have Fun Shirt Friday, everyday Fun Shirt.
Yesterday was Trevor's birthday.
Oh, happy
Happy birthday
to you.
I won't let him.
Last time the planning commission sang,
25.
they forgot to do the Pledge of Allegiance because they sang that. Glad to have to let that happen.
pledge allegiance or happy
Yes.
birthday song.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Appreciate all your work. Truly grateful to have you. Okay, 3.2, discussion and review of the city's position on Utah Housing Strategic Plan.
So I sent you, and you received multiple links to this document. This is the housing plan that the league is looking for our feedback by the 19th. So staff, we've been meeting
Excuse me.
internally,
Excuse me.
writing down kind of our I guess maybe a more technical comment, although I have to admit, I have a few that are not technical that I've kind of put in there, cause I think when they came up with 150,000 homes by 2028, we were sitting in 2023. We're now in 2025, that same number and same, but understand our record number of housing starts in this state was just under 40,000. So is it even a realistic goal? Does it need to be updated? Just pointing that out, that we need to understand that before we set this, swing for the fences goal that would require double our highest building effort ever. And I don't even know, do we have are there enough contractors in the state to do that?
Or employees, or lumber, or resources, or
Water.
pipe, or,
Having built a home in that year when they were at their maximum, it took forever, and they couldn't, the subs were always like just so super swamped, they were working Saturdays and Sundays, I'm just curious, so what we thought, again, this is just a reminder to you and I know there was some conversation if there were specific things that council thought. I think it's perfectly appropriate to submit your own comments to the league, and so we sent you that link to do that. If you don't have it, I'll send it back. We had some comments about, there's a metric in here where they're gonna measure from the time, they want us to measure the amount of time from a completed development application to the issuance of a building permit.
Why?
We need to, I don't even understand what that's going to do, because we'll get a subdivision in, which is a development application, we'll approve it. And it doesn't do anything, right? It's really up to the builder when they're going to do that.
17, 18 years later, they still haven't built in.
Yeah.
Right, as long as they have finalized that subdivision, it's done and they can go. We used to have a much longer preliminary subdivision process, we've now shortened that to 2 years, but if they finalize that subdivision, they can sit on it, and we've had a few.
Oak Hollow
Yeah,
during the recessions, when we went through the recession in
Oh,
2008. That was built and sat empty with all the lots ready to go for 6 years,
Yeah.
7 years.
so that is one that I just asked the question to the state, what are they trying to get out of this? If it's to see how long builders are sitting on things, or are they trying to, I actually feel like this is aimed at cities, saying, well, how long does it take, you've approved it, why can't you issue a building permit? But we don't control that part. So I think there's some things they need to clarify what it is. There's a lot of data they want us to collect. Some of it we already do, shouldn't be too bad. Some we do not. And I just wanna make sure that we're not just gathering data so that they have a cool data point, but if it doesn't mean anything. So those are some of the staff level comments that we're sending to the league, and I'll clarify that when I send it to those guys, that this is really kind of technical
Yeah,
griping. But if they want, if council,
I think we all should send in our comments.
Yeah.
so it's the March 19th, so next
well, as
Wednesday.
Trevor can probably attest, I'm a huge fan of data points that have no point.
Well, they'll make a point out of it, that's the thing, they'll tell a story on what they think that data means.
That's always the problem with data mining.
Yeah.
It's what do you wanna do with it? And historically, the way it feels like at the legislators, it feels like it's always directed towards cities. Why can't you do this faster? Why don't you do, we need to take away your building inspectors and let them use their own. I mean, just so many things, and so why would we anticipate that data would be used any other way?
Is there funding to come on this? Are they gonna give us
I
money to
think
do
it's
this?
gonna be unfunded.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say
It's
too-
like all those 200,000 homes are, who's gonna fund all those? Oh,
Well, I would say
no.
coming from the league board to, the message with this step one is not, this is setting up the process to get there, the steps. This isn't how we're gonna proceed, this is where, so I'm saying, direct our comments at the data. We're talking, this data point isn't gonna help, it's not gonna do, so I'm just trying to keep our comments geared towards the right thing, cause we're not doing those, density doesn't equal affordability yet, those are gonna be in the next step, if that makes
They
sense.
do define, part of their thing is how do you define the problem?
Right.
And they're
so-
changing all the definitions.
And so that could be, I mean, 'cause that's always the first thing in a public, when you're doing a public, what problem are you trying to solve? Because if you don't know that, then you're just throwing stuff around. I mean, we just endured that for 45 days. Through the legislative session. So I think when you look at that, defining the problem, try to come up with,
Nathan start.
I know,
I-
it's
you know-
rubbing off on it, sorry.
So it's just the very first title is barriers to homeownership and affordable housing are the single greatest threat to Utah's prosperity. A lack of affordable housing holds back our workforce, weakens our economy, and keeps Utahns from achieving the American dream. So is this plan gonna fix this? Is that the whole idea? Is we're gonna fix this problem with this strategic plan?
So I think phase 2 is a lot of it, here's what we're going to do to
But
fix
this is
this
setting the
plan.
goals, right?
Correct, this is that high overview that says, here, we're defining the problem, there aren't enough homes. Okay, and then they are setting some of those strategic housing guides and talking about the metrics. So if you, on page 7, it starts to lay out, what is phase 1, what is phase 2? Phase 2, your metric collection, analysis and reporting. There's also another chart, it seems like there's another phase, I think there's, look at there's been a lot of, maybe I don't have it, the league keeps showing this chart, here we are on the path, there's these other steps in between. I think at this point, we need to give our comments, I would say if you've read through here and you think it triggers one of your thoughts, I would submit that in, because I don't know what they're going to do in the next phase. If all of a sudden it'll be like, yeah, we're moving forward. I mean, I think we see that sometimes with the legislation, we think we're having a dialogue and the next.
You do with budgets and land use are impeding housing, then they need to quantify that, qualify that, and justify that. Because they've made those claims as reasons to drive forward some of the legislation they've been pushing. And when we finally get the data and report it to them, it's clearly not that. Now, there may be some bad actors out there that they want to punish, okay, that's fine. But in general, when there are 200,000 entitled homes already to be built in this state, those 200,000 homes are more than what their goal is. So you don't have to make a single change or approve one more housing unit in this state to already have enough houses that cities have approved to meet their goal. So just go build what's already approved and you solve the problem.
And I would
And you
say-
don't have one other
Yes.
legislative
If
action, you don't
that's-
have one other
again, I
budgetary
think we
constraint,
should
you have to
submit-
do one more data point.
Our comments, so really, what I think the plan is, unless you direct otherwise, we're gonna still submit a staff level comment. And I've received them from, Michael Malloy, Wendy and Blake, and Bryce, I think we've talked about, if there's some other stuff, we'll put it, we're gonna just submit one, from staff. And then, but it is the 19th, so you can go on, there's a little form you start filling out online. So I'm actually typing mine up separate so I can cut and paste them in there instead of typing it into their form, but.
And I'll report next, but we have league board meeting Monday, I believe. We just haven't even talked about this, we had to get through the session, so this is gonna be a hot topic at the league board.
Yeah,
I just always think that when you set a document that says goals, that's gonna be the driving document, even though they're like, well, we're gonna get into the meat everything later, but this will be what drives it, these goals, and they're so, I don't know.
And this is always kind of a pet peeve when they, you have a document and the numbering of the pages keeps starting over.
Yeah, you said
So,
7 and then you go.
You go
yeah,
to 7
that's
and then
that
it
for
finishes
7.
that one and then you go to the next set of numbers. So when you're reviewing, I was noticing that today, that I'm gonna have to go through in this section on this page because the numbers keep restarting. Like
Yeah.
so
Should be-
just be aware that when you're reading it and trying to send comments, it's not as easy because I'm thinking, oh, I'm on page 12 and make a comment, then I come down and, why am I on page 12 again? I know I've been, unless I'm having like some sort of Twilight Zone moment, I've been through page 12 and I realize, okay, they just restarted numbering again. So. So it'll be, just be aware of that when you're doing
We'll go do
it.
Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna move on before we.
It doesn't matter. Logic, facts, reason,
It doesn't.
information, data, it has zero impact on our legislature. They'll just change it, they'll move it. And frankly, the legislature, at least the Senate, does build houses, so they should work on that.
Okay, item 3.3. Discussion regarding options for allowing additional uses in commercial zone. Blake, and welcome guests.
I have a couple of gifts here for, help out with some of these slides that we're gonna go through, if we need help. So we're gonna talk about some additional uses in the commercial zones,
Build houses.
that aren't currently allowed. Some ideas, because we occasionally get, people, developers that come in and wanna do a certain use, and there's nowhere to put it. A lot of it ties to home occupations, trying to move into the next bigger space, we wanna keep them in Harriman, there's no option, so they end up leaving, going somewhere else, so. That's kind of the basis behind it, is we're gonna ask the council at the end here if you want us to pursue doing a text amendment to create a new zone, and what we need to consider it. So this
Blake,
map,
sorry I'm gonna interrupt too. I mean, this is coming also, understand Brody is helping with this, and Brody's Brody and I have had conversations over the years, back planning commission together. Brody's heard this from people, so this is coming from a need in the community that we're hearing, so that's.
Well, I was gonna say Sandra's here too, I'm sure she's heard the same story.
We wanted her here to share that story too, so. So this shows the allowable commercial, industrial uses where they can happen in the city currently with our zoning. And so each one of these has restrictions. C1 and C2 are major retail commercial areas. C1's kind of a lower intensity neighborhood. C2 gets to be your more traditional retail. LMPC, who knows what that is? It's they have to have an MDA, so we kind of dictate the land use in that development agreement. And then your M1's obviously more of the flex space, which is what we're gonna mainly talk about tonight, but that is all pretty much located down here off Redwood Road. So it's not even up by our urban center of the city. And then your MU2 is your mixed use.
Wait, it looks like it is, the purples are the same. Purples.
Yeah, they're pretty close. The darker purple.
We gotta use the
That was my fault. It didn't translate over very well on this. It looked really great on my computer screen. And then we have our office professional and our TM zone, which is this little spot out here where both runs in technology manufacturing. If you look really close, I've created some yellow pieces. These are the only undeveloped commercial pieces that aren't underneath the development agreement.
Wow.
So,
Holy
C1, C2. So it's not very much, and there aren't very many big areas to do something. And the reason they're not developed is most likely because they're in some weird configuration or something that's inhibiting development. They have bad visibility or access, tough access. There's a weird shape or there's grade. Something like that is usually what's causing these things to not be developed.
When you may say, at least a few of those, we do have proposals coming in on, right?
Right here we have one right now.
What about that triangle right there? I thought you did something.
Down here?
Yeah.
There's a development on the front piece of it, but the back piece is not happening. And that's one piece we'll talk about in a minute, down by there. So, jumping on to this, so we've been approached by a couple of different groups in the last couple of years about a different type of use. We're calling it a microflex. It's more of a 1,000 to 1,500 square foot area that
Like
you
a
can
hobby cave
optimize out.
thing.
Cause a lot of these flex buildings or flex space, they're huge, like Axia that was just built down on the south end of the city.
15,000 minimum or something like that, yeah.
Like we could fit 100,000 square foot business in there and still only use half of it. So they're big, they're expensive, and so it's not really a great next step for some of these home occupations that wanna move up or new entrepreneurs that wanna start a business. Maybe a plumber that is moving out of having all their stuff in their backyard and wants to move into a business and have a place to park their van and have their equipment and have a showroom in the front, so. And so this isn't currently allowed in the C1 or C2 zone, it's allowed in the M1 zone, which is all down off Redwood. And, let's see.
Could you do light manufacturing, that kind of stuff?
That's, if we do the zone in the right way, we could allow for some certain things and keep the heavy industrial, the noisy, smelly stuff out, stuff like that. So it's all about how we do the zone. We also have looked at, this is the one that's, I'm a little unclear on, so we might need help from these guys, the workshop maker space, could encourage startups, also not allowed in the C1 or C2 zone right now, but I don't know, do you have any questions on what?
Yeah, what do you
Use
mean,
would be there.
workshop makerspace?
Well, so the workshops, makerspace, that is the microflex. Would just kind of be the entrance into one of these microflex spaces where it would have, a conference room where people who have their businesses inside of these microflex spaces can then like meet with vendors.
So like a kiln or an open
Yeah,
office, shared office.
A little like that, where they can go to these bigger front end
Meeting rooms.
places and have a conference.
But then their business is still attached to that, and they just have a common area that they use for.
Yeah, this is a common area for all the people that rent space from that place,
Got it.
So,
that.
and maybe, cause makerspaces and in other places I've been, might have depending on what you're trying to do, maybe they have some of your equipment, 3D printers and things like that I've seen in
CNC
maker
machines.
spaces, CNC machines.
Yeah.
That others are coming in and renting and using, so it's, instead of having to buy all their own, so I don't know if that's what some of the
Well, this is
idea
some,
with
like,
that workshop.
maintenance, like if you have, like who's running the whole shop office. So like our office would run out of something like this, conference rooms if you wanna meet with vendors or whatever you add to it.
Yeah, so the general idea is self-storage. You'll find in some self-storage spaces, contractors will go there to have their office, but it's not set up to be their office. It's set up for self-storage, so fire sprinklers aren't right, you don't have restrooms, it becomes very problematic. So a self-storage operator will go, hey, you're here all day. You can't stay here all day. We're not zoned and built to have you stay here all day. And so I've seen like a facility in Portland, they go, the city kind of turns a blind eye and says, oh, we don't see you, but they know it's an incubator space. It's for a small business to get going. So this space would be like, okay, I'm a small plumber, I got 5-10 employees, and I got my space, but it's Christmas. Let's have the company Christmas party, and this is just big enough that we can have, you know, some treats, and there's a pool table in here, and there's the conference room, and that's, you can rent, you can reserve that space.
It's like
To
the
be,
clubhouse.
Yeah,
A little-
exactly.
It's kind of like that, yeah.
Yep.
And I've seen those spaces in California and Phoenix, and they're usually storage units would have the 10x10s or longer work bays. But yeah, it's specifically, and they have private offices, or there's a UPS or some FedEx or something attached to it where they have shipping and it's all combined. It's a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, you can have, another thing is you can have a bookkeeper or an accountant come and present to all the different guys, or a marketing guy, say, hey, you wanna grow your business? I'm gonna have a little presentation, lunch and learn, come, and then we'll help you grow your business, right?
We'll have a site layout here in a couple slides that'll kind of show how this all would work out together on a sample site. And so the other considerations on these sites, sometimes there's a back corner that doesn't fit well, making everything squeeze in, so the council could also consider allowing like a climate controlled storage or something like that into these areas as well, just as part of the use, so.
Yeah, can I comment on that? So I mean, something we've thought about and seen too is you have these flex spaces, which are great for doing the work, but often, I mean, for us, retaining people who might occupy these spaces is like, if you have additional materials or additional inventory, like having storage combined with this flex space allows them to like grow and scale their business as they need. So that's the need for like pairing up storage with microflex.
I'm always a proponent of storage. We have 40% of our city, that's 38%, that's multifamily, 40, crap,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean,
Enforcement problems.
right, exactly, it does that, it helps with all that kind of thing.
So
Exactly.
sample
That's
site
something
here.
that have the garage.
So here's a sample site.
We can never require
This
it
sample
again.
location is just one that was picked out. It's this is Academy Parkway, this is Redemption. So this would be the spot back there by the triangle where you're talking about. This has kind of tough access. Your access is off of a little road here that goes through Redemption's parking lot. Your visibility, you're kind of down quite a bit from Mountain View corridor. So this kind of oblique view shows you how a potential storage unit, the entry space, workshop, and all the flex areas, accessory storage area, storage units on the back of that. This could be a use for this site that currently is sitting, and we've had some people ask about it. Pretty much everyone that comes to us says, storage. That's all I can really get to work there. It's gonna be, you don't wanna drive a ton of traffic in there with a retail center, because it's gonna be hard to get to, but that access road would be inundated pretty fast. This use, depending on what would go in there, would generate a little bit more traffic than storage units, but less than typical retail. and probably spread it out during the day in different hours and stuff, so you wouldn't inundate the traffic through there.
But you wouldn't do it for storage, outside storage, you'd only do it for storage for people who had businesses in there?
It would be both, it would be a hybrid for sure.
Would these ones back here be for the people that had?
I mean, that's a
units?
consideration, cause those ones are just drive up, you know, it's easier for them to go to those ones that are just drive up versus a multi-story, so definitely we'd consider either
hybrid.
option, yeah.
So, as I've talked with planning through some things, some of the considerations to think about, if the council chooses to want us to move forward with preparing this zone, we could call it like the C3 zone or something like that. It's a little more intense than C2, but it's still gonna allow for retail and some of these things. Is, we currently require a 20-foot setback from the right of way. There's a property up on Harriman Boulevard, where the Lifestone Church is planned to go. If that were to go there and you did something like this on that location, which is currently zone C1, and you had that 20-foot setback, it really wouldn't leave much room in the backyard to do anything. And so maybe we could look at pushing that setback up a little bit to 5 or 10 feet if that front was retail space, and then that would allow for more warehousing access in the back. Some landscaping concerns, if you did that warehousing in the back and all that parking, maybe you'd only put the landscaping requirements on the frontage of the property and not on the back. Setbacks as you're next to residential, if you had a height, maybe have an equation for how far, if you could go up to a max height, you'd have to be a certain distance away if you went above a certain height, up to a maximum height. Is there anything else, Glenn, that you're thinking?
I think that we'd also wanna introduce, some kind of architectural standard. Something that's gonna not gonna be prohibitive in terms of cost, but something that will still provide some, especially if you're pushing these units up to the street front.
Yes.
You wanna have some protection and beautification.
You don't want your typical bay door and cinder block.
A lot of, well, in
Well, I don't think you'll be able to load off that side, you'll be the back side, yes, it's cinder block.
in other municipalities I've worked in or seen, they've just basically just dress up the front of portion of it that's gonna be, you know, where the makerspace might be, and then the warehouse can still kind of just be the, you know, a little less less quality material, but the front of it would be, you know, some kind of brick stone or mixture thereof, so.
Kind of what we already did for people's backyards, their garages and stuff.
Similar.
Yeah, secondary outdoor
Yeah,
facility.
you have to have this in the front, we don't care about.
So, my concern is, we give them this C3 option of these issues, of all these items, and then it's storage units every time, or that makerspace. That'd be my only,
So we could
Park
maybe
there.
do a maximum percentage of the site that could be used as a certain single use or something.
well, like, on that side, it works perfect for that site, but all those open yellow sites, I can see, bloop, 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 and then now we have
Just storage.
400 storage units.
Okay. And maybe the storage units are only accessory to
There you go.
the
To
use
a
or something.
primary
So you
use
have to
or-
have a primary use and then,
That's what we did on this bill down here, kind of, right? So you have to do all this first, and then you come in and put the storage
Yeah.
in.
you do an accessory or something. In the C3 zone, the council would have total control over.
There's no C3
where-
zone,
There's
yeah, there's no
nothing there,
C3
you'd have
zone,
to,
yeah.
someone would have to come in and request that zone on a piece of property.
So you can't just go to a C2 zone,
Okay.
you'd have to come request
You'd
it.
have total
Rezone, you'd have to
control over,
rezone.
is it C1, C2, C3?
And they'll have conceptual uses at that point in time, because they'd have,
They'd have to come in with that for a rezone, we'd have to come in
We'll
with some
have to
type
have
of.
a few permitted uses and maybe
Yeah,
a couple
conditionals.
conditional things, but
And so what we'd do is we would draft up this new zone with design standards and go through it, and then it'd go to planning commission, get vetted through that, and get a recommendation to council.
kinda cool.
I think we're saying, I think we're open to it, we like it. I think we put some guardrails around it to make sure it doesn't get.
I think we heard some pretty good input here, on some of the concerns that we had.
So I love it. I think Out by Redemption is perfect, like I already tell you, I'm a huge fan of this.
I'd invest in
I think
that
that's
for sure.
Those sites are gonna be hard to
Yeah.
develop otherwise, as
Yeah.
a C2 or zone, and the M1's a little bit too intense right next door to
For sure.
residential, so we need something to gather.
Yeah,
I
the
like
other
it.
side, we were looking at the Lifestone Church site, I mean, for that one, where it's very much visual, or visible,
See,
you know,
that's
from
my
the
concern
road.
there, it's a.
Like that right there, like we kind of laid out conceptually what would be there, and I mean, it's, you know, 90% would be microflex along the frontage and then some storage tucked in the back, probably not along the whole thing just because of width.
And see, that's my say, how do we make sure that happens, right? Cause I think that's, I don't think any of us would, I think that'd be a great.
So it's like
use thing.
percentages are a little tricky, it's just site specific, right?
Yeah, it's site specific. And then it's also access of like that located that triangle down on Mountain View. Yeah, getting big trucks and trailers and access and supply and delivery, all that, easy.
Yeah.
But right off of 126,
Mhm.
getting in and out, traffic, it's gonna be fun. It'll be a little tougher.
Totally.
That might be tough, but.
I like to see cause, one of the things we talked about with the huge thing down there, right, was that they created some kind of elevation differences on the back, so that it didn't just look like a giant cinder brick wall at the, entrance to our city down there, right? Still not quite exactly what I had in mind, but,
Agreed.
I just think that for some of these things on these properties, we don't want them to look like, industrial.
Yeah.
Military buildings, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
They need to have some kind of, like these are great, right, with glass and metal awnings and, different colors and elevations and stuff like that. I think that kind of stuff is important for the aesthetic value that these have. Yes, they're serving a more utilitarian purpose, but there has to be an aesthetic appeal for them as well, and that
So
kind of,
would you,
it's gonna be right up against houses and restaurants.
so it sounds like council's open to this, would you like us to
Right.
draft some, or come up with some rough drafts and bring it back to a work meeting with council before we go to the planning commission?
I
Or do you
think
wanna just go straight to the planning commission?
we're always I think this is I know we pushed back a little bit on the fifth Wednesday stuff. But this maybe,
let's do it.
still do it in a fifth Wednesday.
Yeah, this could be a good fifth Wednesday.
be great.
Do we have limitations on, yes, we approve the zone, but no used car dealership or mechanic shop?
Right.
Yeah, we can do it any way we want.
Just making sure.
So, one piece that we talked a little bit about this recodification, you might remember the last, said, yeah, we're bringing back something to clean our code. We have a lot of weird numbering because codes have been brought in and some use Roman numerals, others are using ABC, some are 1, 2, 3. So we hired a company. I don't know what this says about our code, but it's taking like double the time they originally thought. Jackie's getting that ready to come. So even if we do this code change has to wait until we're done with that because we need to get that recodified and then we'll bring it in with the same. Each time we have added a new code, it's like push this project, so we're trying to get that through.
That's on me.
So, so just be aware, I think it'll be fine, cause we still have to take Title 10 changes, which are mostly numbering changes, but back to the planning commission first. And then that will all come to you, you'll adopt, essentially you're re-adopting the entire city code so we can clean it up, but it's not significant, it's really is like making it read like it was intended to be a code, unless it's like unconstitutional
yeah.
or stuff like that. We're taking those codes out, cause.
Or if there was conflicts.
Yeah, and then internal conflict, so that'll be coming to you. So as we work through this process, understand, we've also got that, so you'll see all that. We're not including any major changes in that recodification because it's recodification. We'll be telling, and I already had this conversation with Blake, so we're trying to figure out some timing and I don't wanna put Jackie on the spot, but I know we were working on it, but it is
I have it scheduled to come to the council the first meeting in May.
there you go. So this would follow after that, so it can go to the planning commission before that, but we're not trying to finalize any ordinances until we get that recodification part in front of you. It's a lot, so we need to give ourselves some time in case you get that recodification packet and go, holy cow, that's a lot of change. I'd like a little time to look through it. We're trying to figure out, I've done this a couple times and each consultant has done it differently. This one's not as easy as the last one I did, so, and Jackie's doing a great job trying to boil it down for you, so when you look at it, you'll see these are the changes without giving you 600 pages of track changes with red all over, cause that won't be helpful. So we're trying to clean that up. It'll look like one of those bills you read, on and on.
We're just gonna fix the numbering.
Exactly.
We're not gonna go back through Title IX again,
It was Title V.
or five,
I have
sorry.
a question about, sending it to the planning commission first. I guess, I would actually prefer it come to city council first, cause and sometimes it feels like we waste their time by saying, here, look this over, and then we come through and we go, we're not doing it. Is that, you know what I mean? So it just kind of feels like it's easier if it's something new and something that we're gonna have to give input in, that we should give input and then send it and say what you think, cause their job is to really see if it plays out well, right?
But we
So-
don't have anything drafted yet, so
Okay.
April 30th might be a good date to
Talk about it.
put the planning commission and city council together and hash.
Talk
go through a
concepts.
draft.
Draft, will you, okay, so April 30th is fairly soon.
I think we
In
can have
drafting ordinance world.
I think we can have an outline
Okay.
of the things. I don't know if we'll have a final draft, but we could have an outline.
Just something to talk about.
Look at
For
the
Joanne.
city attorneys,
And
is
this
they're,
would be a whole
they're
new
talking, they're
section,
gonna have this
right?
code.
This would be under Title
Well, yeah, that whole new section there too.
Yeah, just be a whole.
Okay,
Anyway, I just don't.
so I just
can't
want,
fathom
I'm trying to lay some expectations about how fast this will be, because we do have that other process that we've been trying to get done, and we've gotta get it done.
Okay, love it. Thank you for bringing that. I love it. Love the concept. I think it's a needed, the missing middle commercial. I love it. Just trying to.
Attainable commercial.
Wow.
I think you're on 5 or 6 tonight?
Yeah, we,
Okay, thank you. Good to see you. Tell me your names.
Kyle.
Kyle, good to meet you, Kyle. Brody, good to see you, my man.
you better hurry up and go saunter.
Yes. Okay. Wow, we're moving. We're gonna do this. 3.4, discussion pertaining to the 2025 Herman City election. Jackie.
Okay, so the 2025 election, it includes the mayoral race, District 2 and District 3. In the past, we've contracted with Salt Lake County for election services. This year, we are seeing an increase in estimated costs.
Do we have to use them?
Short answer, you don't. The last mayoral election cost just over $51,000. This year, they've not given a number, a do not exceed number, but they've given some scenarios. The highest number in the scenario that we have received was about $213,000. We have
That's almost your salary.
$85,000 budgeted for this election in our budget, just so you're aware. The primary reason for the increase that Salt Lake County has identified was billing errors in past elections, and now that they've corrected their methodology, as well as inflation. I've asked for information regarding their methodology. I did receive how they allocated the funds to different, the cost to different cities. However, what I was really wanting was, are you including personnel, are you including, printing postage? So I'm still trying to get information on how they got to what the total election costs. I just wanna make sure I'm transparent with this because it does have a big impact on our budget. They have also implemented what they are calling an election administration fee, and that's going to be due in July. Harriman City has been given a $5,000 administration fee, and it has to be paid in July if we sign the contract with them, even if our election is completely canceled. It's non-refundable. If we do have an election, then that is just credited towards how much,
We can buy a lot of flip coins for $5,000.
So, I will say this hit Jackie brought this up, less than a week ago, right? We put this on here, hey, we gotta talk about this. It has now hit most of the cities, cause the city managers are firing back and forth. We need to talk about this. How did they come up with these numbers?
They just bumped everyone up like drastically.
100 plus grand.
so we're over four times the amount. I've
Yeah.
been told West Valley is over 4 times the amount. Most cities are double to triple.
You think they're gonna pay for their jail somehow? Oh, I know.
So so there's gonna be a lot of conversation, cause I think
Are we gonna piss off every one of our
Yep.
partners tonight?
Tonight.
Cottonwood Heights said they're up about 70%.
Yeah, I don't, that just seems crazy.
We're gonna put it on comm. I just told, I'm
Is
gonna
there a
put it on our
private
comm
company
agenda.
we can just contract?
We could do the election in-house, we could look at other counties to see if they're willing to do that. There would just need to be really a big educational piece, because like the ballot drop-off boxes throughout the valley, if we did it internally, we wouldn't be able to utilize that.
We
They'd
could
have
put
to
our
come
own box out
specifically
there.
here. We do have a county drop-off, ballot drop-off
Can we
box.
put our own box out there and Public County can take theirs out?
That's absolutely
We
an
hook that
option.
one up to the truck and pull it out.
Exactly.
So that, I think there's
Exit
gonna be
out.
more discussion, a lot of this
No.
wanna understand exactly what their methodology, what costs they're spreading, cause if it's costs that we're already paying for with our property taxes, those shouldn't be in there, but nobody has seen these numbers. The argument is, we were just getting a really good deal for a long time,
That was,
but we wanna, we're still, I think everybody wants to see the numbers behind it.
We can understand that, but have we talked to like Sheldon, our county elected officials about it, ask them what the.
some cities have said that they were going to touch base with Jordan Tusher to kind of help with this. But I mean, this is all fairly new, like, we haven't even had this information for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was just
So-
curious, like, make a phone call.
I
Councilman
think we are,
Stewart,
certainly council, you
Councilman
could
Lear,
ask.
you know, I mean, those guys to say what is going on.
I agree. Yeah, we got this number the other day and sat down, Jackie said, hey, I don't want you to be mad, but look at this number, and I'm like, wow, that's fun. So I
Come on,
know it's
Jackie
hit,
could do it
within the
herself
last
for
week,
like
it has
10 or
hit all the
12,000,
city managers, cause we're starting to
That's
see
good to know, cause then everybody will be
conversation.
pushing back on it too.
like, yeah, what is this? So,
And so, yeah, a bunch of cities have reached out, what are your plans, what are you going to do? I just told them that we were going to be discussing it, I don't know what direction the council would like to go.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I was hoping to have more answers on the methodology behind the numbers, but no, you don't have to contract with the county if that's what you choose.
So we'll come back to you with an answer, can we do some research and?
some phone
I mean, I think
I
we're
just
gonna
don't
have-
understand how a ballot with 3 sections on it, you know, mayor at large
So the
is,
numbering that they gave us, and I had to have Trevor explain it, so maybe I ought to turn the time over to him
Oh.
because he is super smart and he figures out things.
he's shaking it.
Yeah, Jackie and I were trying to figure it out earlier, and Trevor was in a meeting with Nathan, so we were like,
I can,
They provided top line number as far as their costs. They say that to administer every election throughout the county in the primary, it's about what, 500,000,
5:35.
535 or so. And for the general election, 1.6 million or
1.7.
1.7, so they gave those numbers and then they said these are the voting units for each one of those elections, less in the primary and more in the general, just because some elections go straight to general and fewer primaries. So they gave those and then essentially broke down the cost per voting unit, and then allocated it out to Harriman City. But really, Jackie had asked them, hey, to what she was saying earlier, what's the makeup of this 500,000 or so for the primary election? Like, what are the components of that cost? And then, 1.7 million for the general across the county, what are the components of that cost there? And their mom on it, they just answered a different question. So I'm not prepared to say how they came up with those numbers. All I can share with you is how they allocated it back to the city.
And so far, they're not prepared to say how they came up with those numbers either, cause we haven't received it.
I'm guessing the county council's gonna be caught off guard by this too, I'm guessing this came from.
What the county clerk had said and their elections director was that they were audited, and what the audit committee had come back and said is you're not charging to cover costs, and so this is why they came up with the new methodology. So that they're not covering, I know that there was a lot of election contests that were canceled in 2023. We didn't have a primary in Harriman, so some of ours, was considered in that, as well.
Interesting.
well, I think the answer is, if it's a lot cheaper for us to do it ourselves, that's what we should do, right?
Yeah, but what is it, there's a lot of it,
There's
unknowns and intel.
There's significant challenges if we were to do it ourselves. Jackie and I have talked. It's not impossible, but there would be a lot of things we would have to overcome.
And
When do you have to, when do you have to decide?
if we decide to go with the county, to contract with them, they want the contract back before the end of April. So we have a month, we have 3 meetings.
But they should give us more breakdown of the information between that now and then.
And they
right?
haven't provided that, I've asked, and hopefully I can get some more information. The election director just said, well, it's just hard to explain.
Cause they don't understand, they don't understand. They were just
How
told.
did they come up with the number, so how did they come up with the number, should be that hard to.
And yeah, that was my last request to them, is how did you come up with this number? And I'll send that information to you as soon as I have it.
It's like when they were gonna close the transfer station based on the numbers and the garbage district asked for the numbers and they said, well, we'll have to form a committee to get the numbers. I don't even know what that means. So hopefully they don't have to form a committee to get the numbers, cause that will take a lot of time.
Okay.
Yeah, but we should reach out.
Somebody got
Okay.
Tylenol.
Yep, let's reach out to them. Then we'll talk about a we'll bring it up at and try to get everybody's costs. We'll try to get the whole county, all the mayors, all the, kind of push it back on it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. Okay, we got through. Good word, work meeting, okay? Okay, I'll look for motion to,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll go into our regular meeting.
And that's still that.
Now we all pack up and move to another